Hey guys, I'm Bronson, and I want to talk about the New Zealand Nationals for Flesh and Blood that happened in September 2020. Now, the big takeaway from this whole tournament is that it looks like a lot of heroes are really balanced after the Crucible of War release. So, prior to this tournament, it looked like a lot of people who were winning these tournaments played Bravo. So, there's, I think, 4 wins currently with Bravo, and there really weren't too many others with the other heroes. I think Warrior might have had just one other, but it was very scarcely distributed between those other heroes. But then Bravo had 4 wins under his belt. Now, this right here shows you that there is a really great distribution. So we've got two of each. We've got two Dash players, two Rhinars, two Bravos, and two Dorinthias. So a really good spread. And after the tournament concluded, Matt Rogers won with Dash, which is really cool because it shows, hey, Bravo doesn't win all the time. Sometimes Dash wins. It's a nice thing to see. There's variability in the game, and there's not just like a top eight of all Bravos or all Katsus or whatever, what have you. And that was really neat. I like to see that. And the other big thing that we learned is Instagram is a thing, and they really try to pump a lot of the news for this tournament over on Instagram. So Legend Story Studios, they hadn't used their Instagram account before this event, it seemed, and they posted, I think, around like 45 pictures, but also articles on the side. So what's really cool, I didn't notice this at first, is that you'll see pictures of the competitors playing the game, but then on the right, there's actually a really good write up on a couple of those pictures that says, hey, well, Matt did this and Liam responded with this. And it really kind of gives you a play by play of what was happening, since there's no video of the tournament that is out there for people to watch. It's all pictures. So that little write up was helpful. Another thing that was really cool that I love that they did is they added the top 4 players deck list to the Instagram page. So you go in and you can see all of the deck list of each of the top 4 players. And that is just huge because there's gonna be a ton of people out there who are looking at the pro scene and they want to be pros. And they might see this and say, oh, well, I can buy Matt Rogers' whole deck and I can be, use that deck and try to be competitive. So I think that that was really cool that they did, so people can actually learn from the top tier players and see how their decks work, and maybe stuff that they were doing was a little antiquated, or that they didn't use the cards most effectively, and now they see that there's some cards in there, they're like, oh, maybe I should use them. Now I really want to get into the card collectability and what cards were actually used in these decks. So first off, what I was really happy about is no Fable cards were in the top 4. And that is huge. I can't tell you how huge that is to see that, cuz I was so worried that these top tier decks would include these really expensive cards, like if you're talking about Heart of Findale or one of those Eye of Ophidias or the Arknight shards, which are sometimes $1,000 plus. How depressing would it be if all top 4 players had like $2,000 decks? That would be horrible. So I really like that those cards weren't used. And I think a Redditor had a really great point. He said one of the pro players noted that the reason why Fable cards don't really have a use as much is because when you have a hand, you want it to be diverse. You want it to be used for different scenarios. And the Fable cards just do not have that defensive value on them. So if you're attacked with this huge attack and you need to block it with something in your hand, the Fable cards are not going to help you. So that seemed like a really good point to me, and it seemed like the added benefit, the benefit that you're getting from those cards weren't that crazy. Now, the one thing that I really don't like in the collectability side is that all the decks in the top 4, when I was looking through the card list, they all had the legendary equipment. And I expected that, but guys, like the legendary equipment cards are like $200 to $300, and then a bunch of the other cards that were in their decks, when you add it all up at the end of the day, all those decks are around $500 to $700, and that kind of hits me. And I don't really like that to compete you have to spend $500 on a deck, and that was kind of concerning to me, but that's just a little part of me that's feeling that. A much larger part of me knows that in 2020, Legend Story Studios is creating collectability. They want to have value in the product. They want people to have perception that this product has value and that are paying money for these cards, which is good. I like that. I think that that is what they should be doing, and I know in the future, in 2021 and beyond, they're going to increase their market share and try to branch out and grab people into the game more. Now it's more of setting the foundation. When you build a house, you need to pour the concrete and put up the rebar. That's what they are doing in 2020 with the collectability thing and showing that they are running awesome tournaments and that there's a lot of strategy around that game. I get that, but just the fact that these decks are pretty expensive is kind of a letdown. But I understand why it's happening. But overall, it was a great thing to watch and like just the pictures and I'm sure down the road we're going to hear a lot more interviews of the players and hear actually what happened instead of hearing my account who just looked at a bunch of pictures. But it is really kind of interesting to see. Another thing that I want to leave off with, and this is the last point I want to make, is that it seems to me that the decks that were played were very aggressive and were very just bum rush. And when you have a good streak, you just rush to the finish. And when I looked at Matt Rogers' deck, the only card that he had 9 of is a card where when you boost it, when you boost it, you take a card and you banish it off the top of your deck, you get to go again. So it seemed like his deck, when it was functioning at its core, when it was trying to dash to the finish, if you will, no pun intended, uh, it would get rid of a bunch of your cards and it would just not care about your deck size and it would just bum rush and try to take it fast. Another thing that I noticed too is there's a Rhinar picture of this person who did 36 damage in one turn. 36. And the reason why is because I think they hit like two or three. I think it's called Bloodshot Bellow. I know people are gonna bash me in the comments, but I think it's Bloodshot Below. And that thing just it makes you draw 2 extra cards. And I think if you play one and you draw another one, you can play it again and draw another one, play it again. So at the end of the day, you can put out a ton of attacks and a ton of damage, and it got up to 36, which is pretty crazy. So that is kind of what my vibe is from the top tier decks. Is it's a lot of aggression. It's a lot of when you have your opening, you just pump the other person with a ton of damage in 1 or 2 turns. And I don't know. I think that's cool. I like it, and I like aggressive decks personally when I'm playing and trying to be competitive. But just something I noted. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something about the Nationals. Have a good one.